Sales Hunter podcast. My name's Mark Hunter. Right now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about communication. Is your customer even listening? And you know what? I'm not going to be talking about questions. I'm going to share with you strategies that are going to help you frame up how you communicate. That's today's episode, and it gets going right now.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
I'm talking today about communication, and is your customer even listening? Now, first off, let's remember communication is not about you, it's about the other person. Everything you say must be geared towards one thing: getting the customer to share. But I want to get past the issue of just questions and give you a framework from which you can build your communication. And yes, this applies to whether it be verbal or in email. It really doesn't matter, but it comes down to really 5 things. Number 1, is your communication factual or emotional? Stop and think about that for a moment. Is your communication factual or emotional? You see, here's the thing. Do you share stories? Do you create a connection they can relate to? Does it allow your personality to come through? Now, you may want to communicate factually, but I'm going to share with you this. Communicate first emotionally. When you capture people's emotions, then you can begin to present to them and share with them logically, factually. Otherwise, if you go logically, people check out very quickly. Emotional is far more important than you realize. Number 2, does your communication engage the other person? See, communication is not just really what we say, it's what we hear and how well we engage the other person. You see, it is about the questions we ask. Okay, so I lied a little bit. There's one of those that is framed around questions. But number 3, does your communication create confidence or uncertainty? Now stop and think about this for a moment. Both of these have a place. You need to early on create uncertainty with the customer, uncertainty that their current status, their current position, their current use that they have, it just doesn't work. That you have to create uncertainty. And then you have to begin to shift and demonstrate confidence that they can trust you for a solution, and confidence that the solution you provide is really going to work for them. You see, so you got to understand confidence or uncertainty. I do uncertainty up front. When I'm talking about me, I'm talking confidence. And when I ultimately talk to my solution, I talk confidence. But when I communicate the price, I got to come back around and reinforce the uncertainty. The uncertainty that says, I can't remain in my current position. I can't stay with status quo. Making no decision is not a decision. No, making no decision is a decision. It's a decision to not make a decision. And so I have to create that level of uncertainty with that one. Number 4, does your communication have a purpose, a call to action, a next step? Now, we always love to say, oh yeah, all of my communications have a CTA. And no, they don't. It is amazing. You see, you got to be clear. You see, you may know what you're looking for, but does the customer know what you're looking for? You have to articulate the CTA extremely clear. Now, the easiest CTA is arranging the next meeting, arranging them to take a look at this piece of information, arranging them to do something. But you got to be clear, and you got to put hooks in the ground. In other words, hooks in the ground meaning you've got to get the customer to have ownership in it. You see, if there's no ownership in the CTA, it's easy for them to blow it off. Ownership means that they're going to do this prior to you coming back and talking. They're going to look at this, or they're going to do it's engaging them. You see, we can never allow ourselves to view communication as just being a one-way street. The more we engage the customer, the better off we are. Now, number 5, this is the one that really hits home. Does your communication reflect who you are, and in the end, leave the customer in a better state? Ooh, stop and think about this for a moment. You see, with every communication, I want to earn the right, the privilege, honor, and respect to be able to meet with that person again. That's absolutely key. So, what I have to do is I want them to understand who I am. This is why I allow my personality to come through in my communication. This is why up front I said we talk about emotion before we talk about factual. I tell stories, I tell things. Why? Because I want them to understand who I am. And I want them to know that my objective is to leave them in a better state, which means a story I might share is of another example how I've had a similar customer and been able to walk them through this process and be able to leave them in a more positive state. Where does all this take us? It takes us very simply that sales is not a linear activity. It's a never ending loop, which every day creates new opportunities, new ways to influence and impact others. Don't think for a moment that the communication you have with one person today ends with that one person. Who knows? That one person is probably going to wind up talking to somebody else. This is why I say sales is not linear, it's circular. We have to be very mindful that anything we say to one customer is going to very quickly come back and really be played back to another customer. And not only will they do it, but it does it in our own mindset. You see, when we start playing games in our mind, it's amazing how we can go sideways real quick. Here's the other piece I want to leave you with. Are you focused on only one form of communication? Because of this, you're losing out on reaching more people. I see so many people today, what they're doing is they're only communicating by way of email. They're only prospecting by way of email. You're losing out because, again, there's so many other ways to be communicating with people. You see, here's what it comes down to. I've got to use different mediums to reach out to you. And I've also got to use different timings of the day, different timings of the week. It might be early morning. It might be late in the day. It might be Monday. It might be Friday. Don't rule out the weekend in many, many situations. Is it email? Is it telephone? Is it text, social media? We have to be able to be adept at all of them. I have customers who only communicate to me via social media. I have other customers that only communicate to me via text message. I got to be adept at all. See, regardless of the medium, though, keep this in mind. Brevity wins first. Clarity wins second. Brevity wins first. In other words, keep it short. Clarity wins second. Make sure your message is clear. Let me leave you with one final thing. Is your message personal or professional? Either way, you lead off the conversation by putting the other person first. Hey, my name is Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. You've been catching up on another episode of the Sales Hunter podcast, and do want to thank you for listening. Hey, do me a favor. Would you leave a review of the podcast on your favorite podcast app? Please do, because again, it's the way we are able to share with other people that this is a podcast you want to listen to. Each week, 2 episodes, short one like this, and a second episode where we do a longer, deep dive with a subject matter expert. My name is Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. Great selling.